Welcome back to the Daily Drum on WHUR and Sirius XM Channel 141. I'm Harold Fisher. Did you feel the extreme heat this past weekend? Certainly your skin did. Summer is just getting underway and it promises more of the same before the fall. So what do you need to do to protect your skin from sunburn and skin cancer during the hot and humid days of summer? For tonight's Medical Monday conversation, my guests are Dr. Deborah Coates-Walton, a licensed dermatologist, and Dr. Melanie Macklin, celebrity research and development dermatologist. Ladies, thank you so much for joining the conversation. I appreciate it.
We appreciate you, Harold.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So let me start with you, Dr. Walton. Obviously, you experienced some of the some of the heat and some of the humidity we had in the DMV, some of the most severe heat that we've seen, record-breaking heat. When you think about the kind of weather that we've had over the course of the weekend and your skin, what comes to mind?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind to me is skin protection. We are all subject to the effects of the harmful rays of the sun. Be mindful that these times it's very important not only to hydrate on the day of the heat when the heat index is so high, but if you know it's going to be that high, you should start hydrating days in advance. In addition to that, there are things that we recommend for all people of all colors, race, whatever. Number one is sunscreen. Sunscreen is a must. You have to think of the sun as if we're a microwave. If you get in there and I get in there and the next person, we will all burn. So sunscreen is very important. How we dress is very important. The more weavable type of clothing that we have, we really don't like to wear dark clothing during the sun or sunny days, but it's protective. We want to protect our eyes. Eyes are also prone to skin cancers. It's prone to glaucoma, macular degeneration. We have to protect our heads. Gentlemen who have no hair on their heads. Caps and hats are very important during this time, as well as it is for women. So basic things: hydration, sunscreen, and sun protective clothing, and seek shade whenever you can.
Dr. Macklin, when you hear what Dr. Walton is talking about, obviously for individuals, let's talk about individuals first. Your skin, even though we know it's the largest organ on your body, the skin on my head is not the same as the skin on my arms. Is that correct? Or my dermatology degree comes from a Rice Krispies box. So help me with that.
Well, yes, the scalp skin is definitely much thicker than the rest of your body, and of course, as you get closer to the face, the facial skin happens to be thinner, especially around the eyelid. So to Dr. Deborah Coates-Walton point, you definitely want to make sure you have some UV sunglasses of 400 to make sure that you're getting that great eye protection. And as we touched on with just talking about the scalp, going back to that really quickly, hats are critical, but we got to do the large brim hats. These little baseball caps do absolutely nothing. They may give some shade in the front that may cover or may not cover that nose, but wide brim hats, straw hats are really not protective as well because the sun rays are still getting through those little interwoven sort of pieces. So the key is large brim hats. And then back to Dr. Coates-Walton's point on the UV rays. We've got, I like to tell people to think about it this way. We've got UVA and UVB. Think about UVA, A for aging, because the sun will cause accelerated premature aging. And then think of UVB, think of B for burn. And the more burning that you get, the more higher risk that you're going to have as far as your risk of getting melanoma and squamous cell cancer. So when you look for sunscreens, which is very critical in all skin colors and tones, no matter if you're light or to the darker skin, you want to look for a broad spectrum sunscreen of at least SPF 30. That's from the American Dermatologic Society recommendations. SPF 15, maybe in the wintertime is okay. But SPF 30, a broad spectrum that covers UVA and UVB. And also what folks fail to not actually may not know is that the fluorescent lighting in their office environment is part of the ultraviolet spectrum. So even when you're in your office and you're not out enjoying the great sunshine, you're still getting the beaming light from the fluorescent lighting above you at your sit down desk. So that's why they got SPF and makeups now and powders and foundations, but you still want to have that lightweight moisturizer that still has your SPF.
So Dr. Coates Walton,
yes,
for the layperson, when they step outside, as was the case this weekend, and you're thinking about what is not good for your skin, most people think heat, not ultraviolet rays. Is that backwards? Should they be more concerned about the rays they can't see versus the heat that they can feel?
So the lay person is not going to be familiar with the terms UVA, UVB, and UVC.
Mm-hmm.
All of them are emitted by the sun. And as Dr. Macklin pointed out, UVA, that's a very long wavelength. The longer the wavelength, the deeper the penetration in the skin, hence the more prone you are to skin cancers. UVB, most people go to the beach, you're getting UVB rays more than likely. UVC, the ozone layer is going to protect those rays from coming through. What I'd like to tell patients, and patients of all colors, is that the best time to be outdoors and enjoy the heat or the sun, whichever you prefer, is before the hours of 10 a.m. and after 4 p.m. During those hours between 10 and 4, the sun is directly overhead, so you're getting maximal penetration. And in terms of heat, you can't get heat without the rays. So you can get heat even on a cloudy day. You can get rays on a cloudy day. Heat is just the uncomfortable association with the rays that you're getting. Again, hydration is key. Sun protective clothing are key. And stay in the shade whenever possible. If there's a tent, go under it. If there's a way to cool off with a sprinkler system, enjoy it. But definitely that SPF sun protection factor should be at a high number. That high number allows you to stay out in the sun for longer than you would as if you didn't have it. So for instance, if you're putting on an SPF 30, it allows you to stay out in the sun 30 times longer, but you don't need to be out there that long. Embrace your skin color as it is. Again, our goal from the American Academy of Dermatology is prevention. And prevention comes with education. Avoid the sun between 10 and 4 if you can.
So you know that this is girls' trip season.
Yes.
Everybody,
golf season for guys.
Golf season for the guys and the gals.
Yes.
But the reason I mentioned the whole girls' trip is because, as you know, when you go on these trips, and the men also do this as well, but when they're going to Jamaica, when they're going to Bahamas, Aruba, Bermuda, wherever, they have a tendency to want to lay out all day. And I'll tell you, just from personal experience, and I was kind of reminded actually this weekend. I remember years ago I was in the Dominican Republic, and because there is less pollution in the Caribbean, and I remember stepping out of my hotel room, and I immediately felt a tingling on the top of my head. And I shave. I'm not bald. I just prefer to shave. So I mean, I do have hair. I just I shave it. But I just remember that tingling, and I'd never felt that before. And so I'm assuming that was the very beginnings of sunburn, or the impacts of the sun's ultraviolet rays, where there is considerably less pollution in the Caribbean.
And you're closer to the equator.
Ah,
Mm-hmm.
So the further,
talk to me about that because, like I said, this conversation isn't just for people to think about what happened this weekend. As I said, we have people going on vacation, and they
Yeah.
need to hear this. But please, ladies, please share your thoughts about that.
so you have to remember sun exposure is cumulative. Okay, what you get today will add up, and sun exposures that you've gotten years before will add up. And these are the beginnings of changes in the cellular compartment that will lead to skin cancers. So the fact that you're in the Caribbean, you're further south, you're closer to the equator, the rays are going to be more penetrating, particularly the UVA rays. And again, as Dr. Macklin pointed out, think of aging. When you get enough of those UVA rays, there's something called extrinsic aging that now will promote freckling of your skin. It'll promote fine lines and wrinkles of your skin. And then you wonder what happened. That's why sunscreen and, in your case, or men who shave their heads, hats are very important. You'll often see professional athletes who participate in outdoor sports. They take that ball cap and they turn it around. They do a 180 and flip it back because now the sun exposure's on that neck, but now you've exposed your entire face. So hence the sunglasses. As she mentioned, there's a particular wavelength ray that you're trying to prevent from getting into the eyes. Eyes are skin. You know, you're more prone to melanoma in the eye.
Really?
Of course.
I did not know that.
Yeah, you have to protect. Driving, I drive on the Beltway every day, and the first thing I do when I get in the car, I'm supposed to put my seatbelt on, but I reach for my sunshades. And then I put my seatbelt on. But again, because the sun, and we have to remember also that I have tinted windows, but light is reflected off of those windows. When you go to the beach, the light is reflected off of the sun, the sand and the water. I'm sorry, the sand and the water. They reflect light. So even if it's cloudy outside, you're on the beach, whatever, you're still going to get those rays. So,
I want you to drill down a little bit deeper about the eye thing, because one of the other things that I have seen, recently, people, for example, coming out of the gym, and some people, whether they are they're white, they have blue eyes, like gray eyes and the like, and they are shielding their eyes. However, I've seen the people of color, people like me, yes, I know it's bright, but my eyes are dark brown, and those people who are people of color or what have you, they have darker color eyes. I want you to think about that question as I go to a break, and we can talk about it on the other side, because I'm really, really curious about that. And you said, eyes are kind of a form of skin. So think about that question. I'll re-ask it on the other side of the break. And then, Dr. Macklin, we're going to come back to you as well, because I want to talk about what kinds of protections for the skin are possible. Got a lot of questions about that as well. So stay with us. We are going to take a break, but don't forget, you can hear this and every edition of the Daily Drum Insight segment via podcast on WHUR.com, our website. The Daily Drum will continue on Sirius XM channel 141. The Original Quiet Storm with John Mons is next. That's on WHUR. This Medical Monday conversation continues on Sirius XM channel 141 in just a few seconds. Welcome back to the Daily Drum on Sirius XM channel 141. I'm Harold Fisher. We continue our Medical Monday conversation about summer skincare and health. My guests are licensed dermatologist Dr. Deborah Coates-Walton and Dr. Melanie Macklin, celebrity research and development dermatologist. Before the break, I was asking about the effect of sunlight on people who have light-colored eyes. Dr. Coates-Walton, you were beginning to speak about that right before the break. Do people with lighter eyes, are they more sensitive and or more susceptible to the sun's rays than people with darker eyes?
If you think of color in general, and let's go back to our skin types. So as a dermatologist, we type skins types 1 through 6. A type 1 skin is someone who has very light skin, possibly an albino. Let's say an albino. They have light eyes. They have generally light hair, just light skin in general, easily burned by the sun. As we progress, we go to type 2, a little darker white or Caucasian person, maybe a little bit darker hair, still could have blue eyes, still could have gray eyes. As we get to the types 4, 5, and 6, you're looking at the Mediterranean individual, you're looking at the African American, you're looking at the Asian individual, people that now have darker hair and darker eyes. So think of light. Light will penetrate lighter things quicker than they will penetrate darker things. When you open the segment, we talked about clothing to wear. If you wear something that's linen, very thin, the sun can easily penetrate to that. Something with a more woven factor, the sun, it's harder to get through. So going back to color, it's easier for a person with light eyes to experience pain and discomfort from the sun than it is a person with darker eyes. We have something in our skin called melanin. Melanin gives us our skin, and melanin is produced by a cell called melanocytes. Now, here's the catcher. Everybody is born with the same number of melanocytes. It's the fact that we produce more melanin because our melanocytes are larger than a person with a lighter skin type. Remember, I talked about the skin types 1 and 2. They have the same number of melanocytes. It's just that they're smaller and don't produce as much. So if you've got darker eyes and you're not going out in the sun squinting, you have a little bit more protection than the person who has the lighter eyes. That lighter eye person should definitely have on some UV protected eyewear, just as a darker skinned person. You know, if you don't have that problem, you don't want that problem. So wear the glasses. They're important.
So, Dr. Macklin, I want to talk about, protection, for your skin, because again, when you're looking at, it's one thing to be out and you're exercising, you're running in the park or walking in the park or what have you. And I know all of these skin protectors are not created equal, but some people react differently. Do you need as much protection if you are a darker skinned person as opposed to a lighter skinned person?
Well, certainly, actually, as Dr. Deborah Coates-Walton just mentioned a few minutes ago about the skin types 1 through 6, of course, 1, you would certainly need a lot more protection overall than someone that has a 6. But I think there's been this myth out there that if you are a 4, 5, or 6, that you don't need any sunscreen, you don't need any protection. You could just lay out in the sun and base all day long. Hence what you were speaking of with the girls trip, where, yeah, because I've been guilty of that. We just lay out all day right at the water. And so
that's what you do. You go out, it's after you leave breakfast.
You just lay on the beach.
Right. You're on the beach by 10, 11 o'clock. And we don't see you again until it's time to go to the limbo contest after 6 o'clock.
And we showing all the tan lines, right?
All of them. and some of you less than others, but that's another conversation.
I would be having those tan lines, okay? But I know some others that they don't like very many tan lines, so they on the other side of the beach.
Right.
But no, so protection is very important from the clothing. I do want to touch a little bit on protective as far as like makeup is concerned, because the ladies, we're still going to want to wear makeup during the summertime. I say, tread lightly, especially on like the heavy concealers and the foundations and so forth. They're just going to clog up your pores more. You're going to be sweating it off anyway. I'm more, even though they're adding more sunscreen to makeups, which is very smart, but it does not take away from someone needing to have that extra sunscreen. So just because you see the SPF and the makeup doesn't mean that you still shouldn't have on your sunscreen. So you would apply your sunscreen first, then your makeup or whatever. But during the summer times, I prefer ladies try to stick to more of a powder. A lightweight mineral-based powder. They still have SPF added to those as well. And it makes it more lightweight. You're not clogging your pores, but you're still giving yourself a finished, somewhat finished look. and more importantly, it's just lighter weight. I'm a fan that the powder is actually the final step in skincare. I mean, this is something that I've been saying forever. It's not technically written in our dermatology books, but I have been a proponent of it because it makes good scientific sense. So think about this. We have pores all over our body, except for our palms and our soles. Okay. So when you've washed your face and you put on your moisturizer, you still have open pores. The moisturizer doesn't do anything for coating the pores. So the powder serves as a physical sort of barrier to your pores so that then it helps to trap in those environmental elements, the debris, whatever else is out there, it's getting trapped in the powder so that then when you come home or wherever you go to get ready to, wash your face off, you've washed off all of that nasty stuff into the sink or on your washcloth or wherever, but it's certainly not absorbing, or it's less absorbing into the pores. So the third step of skincare, at least my Dr. Mac formula, I don't know if I've been preaching it forever. Those people that have listened to me like, oh, my skin has really like flourished even more because you're washing off technically all of that trapped bad stuff, and you're keeping your skin fresh and looking great every day. It's my secret. It's worked. I pass it on to a whole bunch of other folks around the world, and they love it. So wash your face, moisturize with an SPF and a light powder. Let's say the foundations for when we go out and all that, and or get on camera like we're doing today, maybe not, but still, powder's that last step with the SPF.
And don't forget the children, don't forget to put sunscreen on your kids.
Thank you.
Right now with children, and it started in Australia, they have a very, very conservative program whereby they protect the kids with sun protective clothing. There's no need to have a little girl out there in a bikini. It's cute, but think of her skin and what's going to happen to it when she does become a teenager, and why does she have these freckles, and why do I have premature wrinkling? It's because you had sun exposure too early, too soon. So there are clothing lines that have SPF protection in them. So think about that when you take your kids out to the water or to the beach or swimming pools or just out for regular play on a day like we've had in these last 2 days. Sun protective clothing is a must.
Yeah.
So should you use a different kind of sunscreen for very young children as opposed to what you may use for adults? And when I say very young children, I mean under the age of 5.
Absolutely. You don't want to expose your child to too many of the ingredients that can be allergen types of triggers. Water Babies is my brand of choice. Water Babies in Blue Australia, my brands of choice for children. Very high
the physical barrier ones that have like the zinc oxide and the so forth versus the chemical ones, as Dr. Coates-Wall was mentioning, those are ones that are more allergenic than the chemical-based sunscreens. So there's physical-based that literally just block UV altogether, and they typically contain like zinc oxide or titanium dioxide and things of that nature. But either way, like she said, Water Babies, things that are specifically manufactured for children under that are younger age.
What about, Dr. Macklin, people who have allergic or highly sensitive skin?
That would be me.
Yes, and so
Dr. Debbie is my dermatologist.
Right, and who are unable to wear the skin protectants. I mean, they break out in acne and the like. What do? Do they just stay in the house?
Well, there are a whole laundry list of skin, dermatoses that are sun photosensitive. There's folks on medications that, that are photosensitive, that we can't ignore that component as well. It's not that you have to stay inside, but you do have to limit those prime sun exposure hours. Definitely looking into, as Dr. Coates-Wall mentioned about the sun protective clothing, you'll look for stuff that says UPF on there, which is, ultraviolet protection factor that for the clothing. And you just can't be a hermit, but you just have to be smart about it. You're gonna have to definitely look for those very nice wide brim hats, and just be very aware of when you're going out. And try to reduce that, especially that 10 to 4 time frame, as Dr. Coates mentioned earlier.
So what is a sun allergy? I've begun meeting or hearing from people who say that they are allergic to the sun. What does that mean?
So we call that photosensitivity. Photosensitivity, a day like today, if you go out and you haven't been exposed to the sun all year long, and all of a sudden you're out there and you become red and irritated, that's photosensitivity. That's an allergy to the sun. So when people have that, we tell them it's gradual exposure. And again, avoid those hours. So if you know you're going to go to the beach and you definitely want to get in the water, it's gradual exposure. You can't be on the beach for half an hour, maybe 10, 15 minutes. That's enough. And especially if you're going to be there for a prolonged period of time, each day you can increase your exposure gradually. Now, there are patients who, well, look, I'm going to move to Florida, or I'm going to be in Australia for 6 weeks. Okay, there's a way we can treat that. We can expose you to general little increments of UVB through a tanning bed. Not that I'm advocating tanning beds at all, but there are different rays that can come from different lighting units. So if you tell me you're going to be living in Australia because you have a 6-week job or something, you can get gradual medical exposures to the light so that once you get there, you're not as photosensitive as you would have been. Mm-hmm. And that's exposure to UVB through a medical licensed tanning office.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If for someone who's never perhaps experienced a sunburn, how do they know that they've been sunburned first, and how should it be treated?
The first thing they say is ouch.
They know, they feel it. Like, actually, here, remember what you said earlier, you felt that little tingle?
The tingle, yeah.
Tingle, yes.
Of the mingling of the UV rays on your lovely scalp there. It was getting deeper for the burning to start happening.
Okay. So at the end of a day of frolicking on the beach in the Bahamas, and I come back to my penthouse suite overlooking the ocean, or the one room with no balcony, whatever it is.
Dream, right?
Right, absolutely. What might I see if I've had a sunburn?
First, you're going to say ouch. You will say that. And secondly, you're going to feel the redness. Now, burns or thermal injuries have different degrees to them. So your first day, you're going to say ouch. Maybe around that second or third day, you're going to notice you might even have a little blistering at the site. At that point in time, you should maybe seek medical help. Then you might even notice some sloughing of your skin. That top layer of your skin will start, and it's a very painful condition. Now you've done some serious damage. So again, just notice the redness that comes with it. If you can calm that down, great. If you're in Jamaica, break an aloe vera plant and put the aloe vera on. That's very calming. Mm-hmm. Other times people use anything from a cold cream to, if you happen to have it, a spray on aloe vera.
Okay.
Right.
And because I'm asking, short of having to go to a hospital, but your self-treatment, Dr. Macklin, please go right ahead.
Yes, I had one point as when Dr. Coates-Walton mentioned about the sunburn can be very irritating. I know oftentimes we will say that during the summertime, try to exfoliate your skin at least once or twice a week, so that you can just remove a lot of the old dead skin cells, and so the skin can just take on a brighter glow. Well, if you have a sunburn, this is when you do not exfoliate the skin. You want to keep as much of that skin in place, because the skin is sloughing off, actually has a lot of good enzymes that's needed to be able to kind of get that skin healing. So it's critical that you not go and try to be doctor in your hotel room or wherever you are and start trying to slough off a lot of that skin that's already coming off as a result of the burn. So that's very critical because you're only going to cause more irritation and potential major bacterial infection as well. So it's important to just let that area be. As Dr. Coates Walton mentioned about the nice cooling and calming aloe vera plant or something like that, cool compresses, but just don't go picking and exfoliating. Let's just not do that at all. So
that's a natural Band-Aid, your skin. It's a natural Band-Aid.
You want to keep as much skin intact as possible.
Let's talk a little bit about skin cancer as it relates to sun exposure. So Dr. Coates Walton, what might that look like? And is all skin cancer is not necessarily related to sun exposure, or is it?
All skin cancer is not related to sun exposure. However, the majority of them are. So we have 3 that we get very concerned about. The most dangerous one is melanoma. And we can detect that by coming in, getting a yearly skin examination. We often tell patients they're the ABCDs of melanoma. If you notice that an area, particularly a pigmented lesion, meaning a lesion of color, and it doesn't even have to be of color, if it becomes asymmetrical, you can't draw a line down the middle of it, that's asymmetry. If the borders are irregular or jagged, you want to be aware of that. If the color is not evenly pigmented, you could have brown in a lesion, you could have black in a lesion, even redness surrounding it. So those are your ABCDs. And then we talk about something diameter. Any lesion that's bigger than a pencil eraser needs to be looked at professionally. And a pencil eraser is usually about 6 millimeters in size. So you have your ABCDs of melanoma. That's your most dangerous skin cancer. That's the one that we say a word, metastasize. It can go through the bloodstream. It can go through the lymphatics. Those are ones you have to worry about. We have our basal cell carcinoma, which is the most common, the most prevalent skin cancer there is. And that can be just a changing, we say papule, the lay people say a changing bump on the skin, something that's there. It doesn't have to be painful, but on occasion, if you nick it, it will bleed. Be concerned about that. Then we have squamous cell carcinoma. These particular lesions are more prevalent on the head and neck area, for women, the extremities, for gentlemen on the back and the chest. So you've got your melanoma, you've got your basal cell carcinoma, and you have your squamous cell carcinoma, all of which need medical attention. And that can be detected and picked up early when patients come in for their annual skin examination. The month of May is, we have melanoma Monday in May. So at that time, people are more aware of skin cancers because now the season is changing and, more patients do come in during that time for skin evaluations.
Dr. Macklin, what about moles and the like? What is that indicative of?
Well, actually, as Dr. Coates Walton was just talking about the skin cancers, there's a lot of skin cancers in the melanoma category in particular that can look like what the layperson would just call a mole. But if it starts to demonstrate, the asymmetry and the borders are off and the colors are all brown, black, dark black to light brown to even little speckles of red in there, you want to be concerned. You don't just want to call it that's a little old mole. I've had that forever. Well, actually, true story. There was a lady when I was doing my residency in dermatology at Hospital Center, and our second year being on the consult service, I was called to the ICU for a patient. She was an older woman in her 90s. And they said, well, we want you to, Dr. Mack, can you come and check this mole out in between this older person's toes, her foot? Come to find out, that was a melanoma. They just thought it was some little old mole that's just been there. It was so bad of a melanoma that it had already started to metastasize. They had to end up doing an amputation of this 90-some-year-old woman, but it gave her longer life because of it. This had gotten very aggressive. So let's, I think the biggest thing is let's not just take a mole to just be a mole and just say, oh, this was a little mole, and think that it's cute, because it may not actually be that cute from a clinical perspective. And so if there's a mole that's changing, then you definitely want to get that looked at clinically by your dermatologist, someone that knows what they look like, not discounting your regular medical doctor, but you certainly want to go to a trained board certified dermatologist to have those moles looked at if they look suspicious. And also I suggest also taking pictures of these things, because what you saw back 2 or 3 months ago may be different than the next 2 to 3 months. So if you have an area that's questionable, snap a picture. And then that way, when you take it to your doctor, they can see the progression for themselves as well.
So this is, a true or false question, for you, Dr. Coates-Walton or Dr. Mafflin, or both. I mentioned in a previous interview last week, I had just come back from European vacation. I was in France, and there was all of this talk about the beauty care creams that are sold in Europe, specifically France, and that regulations were different in that country compared to here in the United States, and that those creams are healthier perhaps than the creams that are sold in the United States. Are you familiar with any of that? Is that true? Is that false? What?
Well, it's certainly, and that's actually my area of product development, because that's my expertise in product development. So I know ingredients. I think the main thing to do is, because each product has different ingredients. And so it's going to take looking at those specific ingredients to determine, how healthy is this product. In certain countries, you're right, their regulations are not as strict as what we have here in the US. So sometimes they will have ingredients in there that would be highly prohibited in topical skincare formulations here in the US. So it's hard to say, Harold, on that, because there's so many different ingredients that's used in different products and so forth. But I caution people to don't just look at the front label, just like with our foods. I tell folks, we commonly look at the back of the labels to see what's in our food products, and we should actually do the same for our skincare products as well. Get used to turning over the label, and the first 5 ingredients are what's the most common ones that are the higher amount in that particular skincare cream. So the first 5, especially those first 2, that's the highest amount. So that's very critical to look at that, and then do your research on if those first couple of ingredients, if there's any known adverse effects of any of those ingredients. And that is when I say use Dr. Google. When you're looking at a product and you're not sure about buying it or whatever, snap a picture of the label, go home and do your own due diligence before you spend X amount of dollars on that particular product, because there could be something that's caustic or can be allergenic for you. So
because and the reason I mentioned it, because the some of the conversations there were that there were fewer chemicals in these products overseas than were in
more
products
natural based.
Right.
Yes.
And I don't know, but apparently from the crowds that I saw from the many Americans who were buying these products, and I know that this was kind of one of those viral things that had been seen on social media, and that people were spending a great deal of money on some of these products, because even some of the products that were sold in the United States that were similar to what was sold there, not similar, but identical brand names, but may have had some changes. So that's why I was kind of asking that.
Yes,
and false question.
it's in general, the whole world has become more, more influenced and would love more of natural based products. I mean, we're becoming more of an educated consumer. I think this just goes universally. People are now into the whole wellness sort of natural approach to the skincare, beauty, whatever. The less chemicals, the better. The less medications, the better. I mean, everybody is gearing. That's why Walgreens with their slogan at the corner of health and happiness or whatever, because they know they serve up a lot of natural supplements and things that are in that natural category. So in general, Harold, folks are definitely trying to gear towards the whole natural approach from skincare, hair care products, especially those hair care companies that are natural based, that have like natural ingredients versus the chemicals. I mean, they're winning big time.
Yeah. So here's the other thing, and this goes back to the whole self-care practices. I know that a lot of more women than men, but when women go to spas and they get those, the scrubs for their, and they get their facials and all of the, and the body scrubs, and then sometimes you can buy some of these products to use at home. Are these products or practices, I should say, healthy for your skin? And I'm asking the doctor as opposed to the spa expert who's laying on the table and
retailing product.
Yeah, I mean, we've got the hot stones and we've got the body scrubs with the pink salt scrubs and yes, it feels.
The client is just in the moment. We just feeling all that, and we're doing what we call impulse buy.
And it feels good. It feels good, but is that stuff good for your skin?
You won't know until you take it home. But I discourage people from doing impulse buy. That's what we call it, impulse buy. You're getting a service and it feels great, and they're like, oh, well, you can be able to do this at home if we have those products, and they may have a checklist there, and they're giving you the checklist so that when you go to the front checkout counter, they've checked off those items, and now they're all bagged up in a beautiful spa bag, and you've had your wonderful experience, and now you're going home with these same great products that they just used on you, but you don't even know what's in them. Hence, as I just mentioned earlier, we got to just start. If you don't just rush to buy skin, this is your skin. It's the largest organ on your body. Okay. So you have to protect it, because if there's an adverse reaction going on, guess what? Your eyes are seeing what's going on. Now we nervous. We got a mental breakdown potentially. It becomes psychologically adversely effective. So a lot of times people don't think about that. They just think, oh, I'm just going to try this product. Now you've got a horrible rash that you got to look at. And then now you've got to go try to find a doctor, dermatologist that can see you. And appointment times for most clinical-based dermatologists, you may not get in the office for 3-4 months.
Oh, gosh.
So you've got this rash that you're looking at, but yet the professional dermatologist can't look at it for 3 to 4 months. So I say all that to say is that we just really have to be careful. Don't be so rushed to get a product just because it felt good for the moment. Snap a picture, look at the label, look at the ingredients, then you can make an educated decision on what it is, because most folks are allergic to fragrance. And a lot of these products, they smell good and so forth. And now you got a smell good, but you got a bad, awful rash as a result.
I think that's a good place to end this conversation. I want to thank you, Dr. Melanie Macklin. Also, I want to thank Dr. Deborah Coates-Walton for her words from the wise to the wise. Ladies, thank you so very, very much.
You're quite welcome. Have a great evening. Thank you.
That is the Daily Drum for this Monday, June 24th. I'm Harold Fisher.